Chapter 2061. Yi-Ching Luo tidied herself up once again. Facing the bronze mirror, she looked left and right to ascertain that the redness on her face had subsided before she walked out of the room. It was already winter time and it was drizzling outside. The cool breeze brushed against her face and Yi-Ching Luo felt refreshed. Mo Yuing, who was guarding outside the door, tilted her head and said flatly, "Ching Luo, the weather is cold, you should wear a cape." "No problem." Yi-Ching Luo smiled as she caressed Mo Yuying's head. "Has Xiao Yi's poison been neutralized?" Mo Yuing raised her hand and slowly smoothed her messy hair as she replied blankly, "And neutralized. Looked like the antidote given by Dao Yigan was real. At least he was sensible. Otherwise, she would really bring Dmo Xian along and make a trip to Godless Island. Are you going to see Xiao Yi?" After she neutralized the poison, she was brought out by Jin Zi, saying that she wanted to enjoy some alone time. Mo Yuing continued. "Two alone time." From her point of view, those two were afraid that she would bring Dmo Xian along to show off their affection. Yi-Ching Luo smiled as she shook her head, then let them enjoy their time. "I'll make a trip back to Three Springs Sect first. After all, Three Springs Sect should have a leader now. Ching Luo is going to hold the sect leader succession ceremony." Mo Yuing was puzzled. If Ching Luo becomes Three Springs sect leader, then what about the world group, devil class? Yi-Ching Luo gave a mysterious smile. "Don't worry, no matter what I become, I will always be a member of the world group in devil class." Looking at Mo Yuying's lowly face, Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and caressed it. "Good shadow, later bring the brothers to Three Springs Sect to watch the show." Leaving this sentence, Yi-Ching Luo stepped on the breeze and disappeared from the old residence. Three Springs Sect. The Three Springs Sect, which used to be bustling with noise and excitement, was now extremely quiet. When Yi-Ching Luo stepped into Three Springs Sect, she didn't see anyone coming forward to welcome her. Yi-Ching Luo faintly frowned as she looked at the few of them walking around dispiritedly. She grabbed a young maid and asked, "What happened?" The young maid had a shock. Turning her head to look at Yi-Ching Luo's face, the young maid's eyes widened as she screamed, "It's young sect master." It was the young sect master. Young sect master was back. Young sect master is back. That shrill voice made Yi-Ching Luo's eardrums hurt. She picked her ears and stared at the maid. She looked so petite, but her explosive power was actually so strong. Not waiting for the echo in Yi-Ching Luo's ears to dissipate. Suddenly, circles of people swarmed in from all directions. It was none other than Zhang San and Zhang Si from the Three Springs Sect. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn. The entire courtyard was surrounded by more than 400 people. "Young sect leader. You're finally back. Young sect master, we all thought that you didn't want us anymore. We thought Three Springs Sect was finished." Sob sob sob, I didn't expect young sect master to come back. Everyone cried and complained at the same time. Yi-Ching Luo expressed that watching a 7 feet tall man sobbing in front of her, this feeling was very strange. Stop, stop, stop. Yi-Ching Luo's eardrums were hurting from all the noise as she raised her hand to interrupt everyone's rambling. "Zhang San, Zhang Si, you guys tell me what's going on. Why do I not want you?" Yi-Ching Luo's words were heard. The entire place was silent. Zhang San looked at Yi-Ching Luo emotionally as he spoke with an excited look. Ever since the last battle, young sect master had not returned to Three Springs Sect. We thought that young sect master had such a good power like the world group and was prepared to give up Three Springs Sect. Star. Chapter 2062. Zhang Si wiped his tears. "Young sect master, do you know how hard it has been for us to wait for you?" "Stop." Yi-Ching Luo rolled her eyes. Who in the entire West continent doesn't know that I'm recuperating in the World Group's lair? Based on your abilities, how could you not know where I am? Zhang San and Zhang Xi's tearful and agitated voices suddenly stopped. The two of them exchanged glances. Following that, they scratched the back of their heads in embarrassment as they giggled foolishly. Young sect master is wise. Indeed, nothing can be hidden from young sect master's discerning eyes. Tell me, what's the matter? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she ignored their bootlicking. Zhang San looked at the surrounding brothers as he spoke in an extremely embarrassed manner. We indeed know that you're recuperating in the World Group's campsite. Zhang Xi and I also specially went to the World Group to take a look at you. Why haven't I heard that you're here to look for me? If 3 Spring Sect's people came over, Long Yun Zhan and Tong Ziqing would receive them and would definitely lead them to her room. But these 3 days, Yiqing Luo had not heard any news regarding 3 Springs Sect. We didn't go in. Zhang San and Zhang Xi exchanged glances. After we went to 3 Springs Sect, we deeply felt that that place is the most suitable place for young sect master. Zhang Xi nodded as the expression on his face gradually turned grave and serious. To young sect master, 3 Springs Sect, actually, shouldn't be considered as a good memory. Once when young sect master was in trouble, none of us stood out to help. Now, knowing that young sect master is Ye's 7th miss, we still chose to follow second young master, recommending second young master to become 3 Springs sect master, helping the dark forces. Almost caused 3 Springs Sect to bear the infamy for life. Almost destroyed 3 Springs Sect. Zhang San's expression turned even more serious and solemn. Even if we betrayed young sect master, betrayed 3 Springs Sect. But young sect master, you still saved 3 Springs Sect without any hesitation, saved all of us, giving all of us a chance to repent. Young sect master, I know. We actually don't have the right to make you stay. I can tell that those children in the World Group have truly treated you as their family and are willing to sacrifice their lives for you. But, young sect lord, you've already given us a chance to turn over a new leaf. Can you give us another chance to serve 3 Springs Sect? After the two of them finished talking, in the courtyard, more than 400 people knelt on the ground in unison. Young sect leader, please give us another chance. Give us another chance to serve the 3 Springs Sect. The voices of more than 400 people were extremely loud and clear. Zhang San and Zhang Xi would never forget it. When they went to the World Group's old residence, wanting to meet their young sect master, they saw those 15 to 16-year-old youths fighting to be the first, wanting to do something for their young sect master. They heard the boys and girls arguing. Young sect master seemed to have suffered an extremely serious injury, and required profound practitioners to exhaust their own profound energy, to help young sect master suppress something. As profounders, they were naturally most clearly aware of it. He was depleting his profound strength. How much damage would it cause to himself? If it was light, he would need to recuperate for a few months or even half a year before he could recover his depleted profound energy. If it was heavy, he would enter chi deviation and lose all his profound energy. But those children, totally disregarding these consequences, all of them were willing to sacrifice their own profound energy to help young sect master suppress it. They asked themselves honestly if it was them. Chapter 2063. In the end, they couldn't compare to those children. Even if young sect master chose the World Group and abandoned 3 Springs Sect, that was a matter of course. After seeing that scene, Zhang San and Zhang Xi didn't have the face to see Yiqing Luo. He returned to the 3 Springs Sect with his tail between his legs. Then, he thought about it. The more he thought about it, the more flustered he became. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that the young sect lord would never return to 3 Springs Sect. The 3 Springs Sect no longer had a master. Could it be? Was the Three Springs sect going to fall from the altar? With this thought in mind, everyone in the Three Springs sect spent the next 3 days in trepidation. It was until the 4th day when Yiqing Luo arrived. Yiqing Luo stood in the middle, looking at her surroundings, surrounding her in a tight encirclement. She didn't know what everyone was thinking. She only knew that these people from the Three Springs sect wanted to serve the Three Springs sect from the bottom of their hearts. Her long and narrow eyes curved, and the corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile. She stretched out her hand to help Zhang San and Zhang Si up. What nonsense are you all thinking about? When did I say that I would give up Three Springs sect? But, if young sect master inherits Three Springs sect, the world group, and those children. Zhang San and Zhang Si reminded. The leader of the Three Springs sect was not as relaxed as he looked. Yiqing Luo is still a student. He was the vice group leader of the world group. If he inherited the Three Springs sect, most of her time was spent on the Three Springs sect. As for the world group, they probably wouldn't be able to care about them anymore. Yiqing Luo smiled. Who says you can't balance both? She smiled craftily, her eyes shining with a teasing light. All right, you can start preparing for the sect master succession ceremony now. While you're at it, announce it to the West Continent and invite some people over to liven things up. Pausing for a moment, she considered the time and said, let's, tomorrow then. Tomorrow? Zhang San was startled. Isn't that too much of a rush? No. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. West Continent side should be fine. As for the other continents, we'll just send out a notice to tell them that Three Springs sect has changed hands. Zhang San and Zhang Si. Isn't this a little too casual? However, Yiqing Luo didn't give them any chance to stop her. She had already turned around and walked towards the inner courtyard of the Three Springs sect. The crowd immediately followed. Zhang San and Zhang Si still wanted to persuade him. After all, the enthronement ceremony was a big event for the Three Springs sect. How could he be so careless? However, they did not have the chance to speak again. In front of him, a group of women rushed over. At the very front was a woman with disheveled hair dressed in a white inner garment. She looked like a lunatic. She staggered towards Yiqing Luo. Behind the woman, there were 5 burly old maids. Those old maids were chasing after the woman. The minute the woman saw Yiqing Luo, she immediately screamed angrily, Yiqing Luo. You bitch! You will be struck by lightning. You will not be able to reincarnate. Zhang San was quick to react. When the woman threw herself at him, he took the initiative to kick her away. The woman fell to the ground. She was held on both sides by the old woman who followed closely behind. When those old maids saw Yiqing Luo, they immediately bowed respectfully. Young sect mistress. Bah! What young sect leader? She was a slut. She is the traitor of the Three Springs sect. The woman screamed madly and struggled with all her might. The old maids held on tightly and one of them directly slapped the woman's face. How dare you be so presumptuous in front of young sect master? Shut up. That woman's mouth was bleeding from the slap. But she didn't care at all. Under her messy hair, a pair of eyes was filled with an extremely cold murderous intent. Star. Chapter 2064. However, to Yiqing Luo, that murderous intent was nothing. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as her lips curled into a cold arc. Isn't this second concubine? Why are you behaving like a crazy woman? After that, her charming eyes turned cold, and she shot her gaze towards the old maids behind the woman. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak, Zhang San was the first to berate them. How did you serve second concubine? How can you behave so crazily? If others see this as a joke, I will hold you responsible. The old maids shivered, except for the two old maids who were holding Madame Yuchi. The other old maids all knelt down. Third protector, please spare our lives. It's second concubine who slipped out when we weren't paying attention. The minute she heard young sect master's name, she went crazy. We old servants couldn't catch up to her at all. All right. Second concubine got so agitated upon hearing my name. That also means that she was thinking of me all the time, thinking that she couldn't wait to see me, so it's not these old maids' fault. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, indicating those old maids to get up. The old maids got up gratefully. Madame Yuchi's facial features were sinister. That unwashed face looked extremely haggard, like a 50 to 60-year-old woman. Yiqing Luo. Return my daughter. Return my daughter. Yiqing Luo, you traitor, you still have delusions of obtaining Three Springs sect. Old Madame will absolutely not agree. Absolutely. Madame Yuchi's howling voice had completely turned hoarse. Her eyes were like copper bells, filled with malice. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, smiling extremely calmly. Second concubine, looks like you've really gone crazy. Your daughter. Isn't she long dead? She pushed aside Zhang San and Zhang Si who were blocking in front of her, as she slowly walked towards Madame Yuchi. Her leisurely footwork. Every step she took. Like a huge stone, it was thrown into Madame Yuchi's heart. Madame Yuchi's twisted face gradually revealed a terrified expression. Yiqing Luo stood firm. She was just one step away from Madame Yuchi. She smiled, her eyes were burning, as she gazed at Madame Yuchi, saying word by word, Your Ling, long ago when your eldest daughter whom you are most proud of, hooked up with the Dark Force Wolf Saint technique, in order to survive, she used your Ling, as a shield. Do you know? Your Ling, was blown to pieces, not even dregs were left. That Ling, was blasted into pieces, not even ashes were left. Madame Yuchi's face turned pale bit by bit. She shook her head crazily, as tears flowed down from her. Ling, it was you. It was you who killed my Ling heir. It Ling. Ling Ling. Ling Ling Ling, Luan S. Ling, Sheath Ling. Yiqing Luo laughed out loud and continued cruelly. Yes, Yiqing Ling was chased out of Three Springs sect and was brought to the dark forces by Yiqing Jian. Chapter 2065. She was absolutely not surprised that Yiqing Qian would kill Yiqing Ling in order to survive. Now hearing Yiqing Luo say it out personally, Madame Yuchi was still unable to accept it. She would rather believe that Yiqing Ling had died in Yiqing Luo's hands than to believe that her own daughter had died in the hands of the eldest daughter whom she was most proud of. Looking at Madame Yuchi who was on the verge of breaking down, Yiqing Luo didn't stop provoking her as her lips curled up slightly as she continued to smile. That's right, I forgot to tell you something. That eldest daughter whom you are so proud of. I'm afraid there's no way for her to save you. The madly howling woman immediately stopped. She stared at Yiqing Luo with bloodshot eyes filled with hatred and despair which made one's heart turn cold. You slut. What have you done to Qian, What have you done to Qian, Yiqing Luo bent over as she looked down at Madame Yuchi as she gave an extremely cruel smile. Do you know, the reason why Wolf's sacred Dharma dotes on Yiqing Qian is because of that face of hers which is similar to Wolf's sacred Dharma's beloved woman. As for me, I didn't take Yiqing Qian's life. After all, we are sisters and if I were to kill her, wouldn't it seem that I'm too cold-blooded? So, I upheld my responsibility as a younger sister and conveniently helped my pitiful eldest sister to test how much true feelings Wolf's sacred Dharma has for her. Madame Yuchi's eyes widened as she understood the meaning in Yiqing Luo's words. Her facial features turned sinister once again as it was extremely terrifying. Yiqing Luo. You ruined Qian's face. Did you ruin Qian's face? Yiqing Luo. You'll die a horrible death, you'll die a horrible death. Madame Yuchi wanted to pounce forward. Yiqing Luo retreated a few steps. The old maids held Madame Yuchi down at the right time. It was obvious that the relationship between young matriarch and Madame Yuchi, who had become a prisoner, was like fire and water. These old maids held on to Madame Yuchi's shoulders as they totally didn't give her any face. Madame Yuchi screamed miserably in pain as she kept on shouting and cursing. Yiqing Luo looked at the hysterical Madame Yuchi as her lips curled into a ridiculing arc. She straightened her body and turned around to walk back to Zhang San and Zhang Xi's side. "It's all thanks to Second Yang for reminding me that old ancestor cannot be absent from the sect head succession ceremony. Looks like I still have to make a trip to old ancestor's place." Madame Yuchi's eyes were filled with madness when she heard that. Sect master succession ceremony. Yiqing Luo. Don't even think about it. How could the elder ancestor let you inherit the position of the Three Springs sect's lord? You don't have the right to inherit it. I'm not qualified. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and laughed wantonly. Don't tell me, you think the Yiqing Qian who joined the dark forces, betrayed the Three Springs sect, betrayed the West Continent and even the entire Nirvana realm is qualified? You. Madame Yuchi was so infuriated that her entire body was trembling. She flopped around in a futile attempt to charge towards Yiqing Luo. "Everyone in Three Springs sect is qualified, except you. And he wants to invite the ancestor to attend the succession ceremony. Dream on." This time, the old maids held her tightly. No matter how Madame Yuchi struggled, she couldn't break free from the old maid's restraint. The more she struggled, the more Madame Yuchi's expression became distorted and malevolent. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Why did Madame Yuchi keep repeating that she didn't have the right to inherit the sect head? Could it be? What did Madame Yuchi know? This thought made Yiqing Luo's charming eyes shivered. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Madame Yuchi's collar as she suppressed her voice and questioned her in an extremely cold tone. "Madame Yuchi, on what basis do you say that I don't have the right to inherit the sect head?" Chapter 2066. Angry. Madame Yuchi's scarlet eyes revealed a complacent smile to be able to cause Yiqing Luo's emotions to fluctuate. "Do you want to know why you don't have the right?" Ha 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 ha. Her face was filled with maniacal laughter. "Do you know why you're obviously the Yi family's daughter, but for the past 15 years, you've been living worse than a servant? Do you want to know the real cause of your mother's death?" Ha ha ha. Beg me, and I'll tell you." Every sentence Madame Yuchi said, Yiqing Luo's expression turned gloomier. Especially when she mentioned her mother. Yiqing Luo's eyes instantly turned extremely deep and gloomy, her pair of charming eyes as though it was covered with frost. Her 5 fingers abruptly moved upwards, clasping Madame Yuchi's neck. Her slender fingers were like jade, so fair that it seemed to be emitting a thick chill. "Tell me clearly what you know." Yiqing Luo's eyes were cold as she spat out her words coldly. Madame Yuchi laughed maniacally. Even though the strength on her neck was tightening, she didn't have any fear. Kill me. If you kill me, you'll never know those secrets from back then." Paw. Yiqing Luo gave Madame Yuchi a slap. "You want to die? I forgot to tell you, my master is the ghost doctor. I have 100 ways to make you wish for death." Not talking right. I have ways to make you talk. She clasped Madame Yuchi's neck, turning her head to look at Zhang San and Zhang Xi. "Bring Madame Yuchi to the dungeon, use whatever punishment you want, just leave her with one breath," Yiqing Luo said as she looked towards Madame Yuchi. Her face was no longer as frosty as before. On the contrary, her eyes curved into a smile. Her long and narrow eyes flashed with a piercingly cold glint. She took out a pill from the profound phoenix ring, smiling as she said, "Second madam, don't worry, I will absolutely not let you die so easily. Take this pill, I guarantee." As long as you can still breathe, even if your 4 limbs are broken and your internal organs are ruptured, you will absolutely be able to hang on to your last breath, maintaining your best conscious state. As she was smiling, she sent the pill into Madame Yuchi's mouth. Yi Qing Luo. How dare you? You dare. Hearing the effects of this medicinal pill, Madame Yuchi struggled, not willing to eat that medicinal pill. This kind of medicinal pill, if it was really eaten, it was an experience worse than death. Yi Qing Luo, you heartless slut. Do you want to know? Good. I'm telling you, you. Paw. Before Madame Yuchi finished her words, suddenly, a gust of wind from her palm struck Madame Yuchi's face. Madame Yuchi's body was like a kite with a broken string, flying out from Yi Qing Luo's palm as she flew backwards. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. Madame Yuchi landed heavily on the fake mountain and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother to look at Madame Yuchi, but turned her gaze towards the direction where the palm wind came from. In front of him was a frail old man with a walking stick. He was supported by a woman who looked to be in her 30s as he walked over shakily. Ancestor. Zhang San, Zhang Si and the rest of the guards, when they saw the old man, hurriedly cupped their fists in respect. Old Madame's face was gloomy, as she couldn't conceal her anger from head to toe. Chapter 2067. Madame Yuchi clutched her chest as she opened her mouth and stared fiercely at old Madame. The minute she opened her mouth, she spat out a large mouthful of blood with a wah sound. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as her lips curled into a smile, as she smiled lightly, so it's old Madame. Qing Luo was still exclaiming in shock earlier on who released such a powerful energy. You're indeed old Madame. Only old Madame is able to release such a powerful, vast and majestic energy. A series of bootlicking was done without her face turning red or her heart skipping a beat. Old Madame's expression turned gloomier and gloomier. She looked coldly at Yi Qing Luo, as the raging storm in her eyes was extremely clear to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo continued smiling, I'm just about to look for old Madame to discuss about the patriarch succession ceremony. I already know about this matter. Old Madame replied in a hoarse voice, as her tone was icy cold. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head smilingly, so old Madame will be present for tomorrow's succession ceremony, right? Yes, the succession of patriarch is such a huge matter, as the only elder in Three Springs sect, I will naturally be present. Old Madame said every word with extreme force. A pair of malicious eyes flashed with a sharp cold glint. Yi Qing Luo's smile grew even more radiant as she looked at Madame Yuchi, who was sprawled on the ground, not knowing if she was dead or alive. Earlier second aunt said that old Madame will definitely not take part in the succession ceremony, and even said that I'm not qualified to become Three Springs sect's patriarch. She walked towards old Madame, as she revealed an aggrieved expression, Old Madame, I'm the young patriarch appointed by father, am I really not qualified to become the patriarch? Old Madame's 5 fingers which were holding onto the walking stick suddenly tightened. The back of her shriveled and frail hand started to show green veins because of her tightened strength. Her gaze became increasingly malicious, like a sharp blade, as though it could pierce through one's heart any time. Yi Qing Luo didn't ask further, as she maintained her aggrieved expression, waiting for old Madame's reply. From old Madame's expression, Yi Qing Luo could tell. About 80% of what Madame Yuchi said was true. What she guessed in her heart was not far from the truth. After a while, the elder ancestor raised his chin slightly and said word by word, You are the young master of the Three Springs sect, which means that you are the future master of the Three Springs sect. If you don't have the qualifications, who does? With old Grand Madame's words, I'm much more assured. Yi Qing Luo grinned as she smiled like a blossoming flower. Her pair of charming eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, looking extremely alluring. Old ancestor only felt that the bright smile was extremely eye-piercing. She tightened her grip on her walking stick and restrained the restlessness in her heart. I'm old. I'll leave the succession ceremony to you young people. As he spoke, he patted the woman next to him. Bai Ming clan, this old one is tired. Bai Ming's eyelashes trembled slightly. She raised her head and gathered her courage. She looked at the Grand Elder and said in a low voice, Grand Elder, please allow me to have a word with seventh young mistress. The patriarch frowned. Bai Ming's back was straight, his hands crossed, and he was extremely nervous. Go. After a moment of silence, the elder ancestor agreed. Old Madam was clear on what Bai Ming clan wanted to do. After getting the old madam's permission, Bai Ming clan's eyes lit up as she immediately turned around and walked quickly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Seventh young mistress, I have something to tell you. Bai Ming clan took a few steps and jogged to the front of Yiqing Luo. Chapter 2068. Third Madam, what's the matter? Yiqing Luo asked despite knowing the answer. Madame Bai Ming bit her lower lip as she clenched her handkerchief tightly and suddenly knelt down towards Yiqing Luo. I know that I shouldn't beg seventh miss for this matter, but other than begging seventh miss, there's no other way. Yiqing Luo leaned towards the right, avoiding Madame Bai Ming's kowtow. Madame Bai Ming stubbornly knelt on the ground as she raised her head and looked at Yiqing Luo sincerely. Seventh miss, I beg you to spare second young master, he's just lost his mind for a moment. Indeed, it was to plead for Yi Feng-ru. Madame Bai Ming's petite body was trembling, but she still knelt upright. I know that second young master's sins are grave, killing his father to force the abdication, forcefully snatching the position of sect master, and even led Three Springs sect to join the dark forces, almost ruining Three Springs sect's illustrious name. But I'm second young master's birth mother. No matter what second young master's sins are, I can't bear to see him die because of this. So I boldly beg seventh miss to spare second young master's life. I'll do anything to repay your kindness. Madame Bai Ming knew that Yi Feng-ru's sins were unpardonable. But as a mother, she still hoped that her son would be able to live on. Yiqing Luo's eyes drooped as she looked at the resolute Madame Bai Ming and shook her head. Third Madam, in that great battle with the dark forces, the rebels will be dealt with by the new monarch. I have no right to interfere. As long as seventh miss is willing to spare second young master, the monarch will definitely spare his life. Madame Bai Ming's thoughts were exquisite, so how would she not understand that in order for Yi Feng-ru to live, Yiqing Luo had to nod her head. The new monarch was able to ascend the throne under such circumstances. Behind the scenes, it was definitely Yiqing Luo who recommended him. As long as Yiqing Luo opened her mouth, Ling Fenging would definitely give her face. Third Madam's deep feelings for your son indeed touched me. Yiqing Luo's emotions didn't fluctuate at all. She indifferently looked at Lady Bai Ming. But, Third Yinyang, have you ever thought that because of Zi Qianqian's death, Yi Feng-ru has been so deeply provoked that he doesn't even recognize his own family? He's even willing to lay his hands on his brothers who have gone through life and death with him, and the woman who has loved him for so many years. If I let him go, as the main culprit behind Zi Qianqian's death, what should I do if he wants to kill me again? This. Lord Bai Ming was startled. If I let him go once, what about the second, third, and fourth time? Third Yinyang, you are very smart and know how to analyze the pros and cons. I don't have that much energy to deal with his repeated assassination attempts. Yiqing Luo's words were very direct. If third mistress has not confirmed that Yi Feng-ru's consciousness has been awakened, I will not let him go. Lady Bai Ming was startled again. Immediately, her eyes brightened, and she kowtowed to the ground with force in wild joy. Thank you, seventh young Mississippi. I will definitely try my best. If I really cannot wake up the second young master, I will definitely not pester seventh young miss anymore. She had made the right bet. Although there were rumors in the outside world that the seventh miss was cold and merciless, bloodthirsty and murderous. But she could tell. Seventh young Miss's heart was actually very soft. As long as she was willing to put in the effort, she would be able to move seventh young Mississippi. Seventh young Miss would definitely relent. Get up, old madam is tired. Go take care of old madam. You still have to work hard for tomorrow's grand ceremony. Yi Ching Luo waved her hand. Lady Biming thanked her profusely before she returned to old madam's side. Old madam took a look at the delighted Lady Biming, and looked at Yi Ching Luo with a complicated expression. But she didn't open her mouth. Chapter 2069. When the voices of the two people disappeared from his sight. Yi Ching Luo looked at those old women again. Didn't you hear old madam's words? Second Yin Yang has already gone mad. Take her back to the courtyard and take good care of her. Yes, young lord. The old women lowered their heads and accepted the order. Zhang San warned sternly, tomorrow is the clan head succession ceremony. Be careful not to let Second Yin Yang's gossips disturb the guests attending the ceremony. The old maids carried Madame Yuqi away with trepidation. Zhang Si leaned over to Yi Ching Luo's side, and after suppressing the words for a long time, he finally spoke out, young sect master, second young master he has already gone mad. How could you agree to third madam? They were at the scene of the battle. They had all seen with their own eyes that Yi Fengru had fallen into the demonic path because of a lady who had betrayed the Nirvana realm, and madly wanted to kill Yi Ching Luo. But Yi Ching Luo was actually willing to give Bei Ming clan a chance to awaken Yi Fengru. If Yi Fengru really got over that hurdle in his heart and dispelled the idea of becoming enemies with Yi Ching Luo, Yi Ching Luo would definitely release him. As for Yi Fengru, who had killed his own father and forced the abdication of the Three Springs sect, he had even led the Three Springs sect to join the dark forces. The people of the Three Springs sect were filled with resentment. Yi Ching Luo smiled faintly. I don't put him in my eyes, he's just another trouble. Moreover, I've given him this chance. If he doesn't cherish it, I won't show any mercy. Recalling the way Yi Ching Luo treated Madame Yuqi earlier, Zhang San and Zhang Si shivered. Cough cough, it seemed like their young sect master was someone who could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. The Three Springs sect succession ceremony was about to take place. In just a few hours, the news had spread like wildfire. The Three Springs sect, which had been quiet for many days, finally became lively. It was a grand and extravagant investigation. Those who sent invitations sent invitations. He was preparing for the program. There were all kinds of things. Although they were a little impatient, they were still prepared in an orderly manner. The matter of Three Springs sect's young matriarch Yi Ching Luo saving the West Continent was spread widely by the commoners present. Hence, on such a festive day, the common people were also dressed in red and green, decorated with lanterns and ribbons. There was also the spontaneous festive gongs and drums of the people. All of them were praising Yi Ching Luo for her huge contribution to the West Continent. On the day of the grand ceremony, the people rushed to the Three Springs sect manor early in the morning, surrounding it in 3 layers. The commoners raised the red flags in their hands, with Yi Ching Luo's name written on it. It was so exaggerated that Yi Ching Luo was shocked. The Three Springs sect was decorated to look extremely rich and noble. The red carpet was laid out along the way, and flower petals were scattered all over the ground. All kinds of big shots entered the Three Springs sect one after another. All kinds of rare treasures were sent to the Three Springs sect. Before dawn, the Three Springs sect was already bustling with activity. Early in the morning, Yi Ching Luo opened her eyes amidst this hubbub. She stretched her body. When the maid outside heard the noise, she immediately asked if he wanted to wash up. Yi Ching Luo got up and washed up simply. Outside the door, a few maids carried a navy blue brocade robe, looking extremely dignified. On the brocade robe, there was a large "Yi" character embroidered. "This is the patriarch's robe that old madam ordered me to send over. I will help young matriarch change into it," the maid said respectfully. Yi Qing Luo stared at that set of brocade robe, and could tell at one glance that it was specially made according to her figure. Apparently, this robe had been prepared a long time ago. Looking at the workmanship, it was definitely not something that could be completed in a day or two. Chapter 2070. The maids brought the brocade robe forward. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly received that brocade robe. "I'll do it myself, all of you can leave now." The maids couldn't persuade Yi Qing Luo and could only remind her on the details of how to wear the brocade robe before leaving. The place where the inheritance ceremony was held was in Three Springs Sect's biggest garden. Under the meticulous decorations of several hundred maids, the garden was filled with flowers and it was extremely beautiful. In the middle of the garden, there was a high stage which could stand 300 people, with a long table and a few armchairs. And right in front of the high stage was a sacrificial altar. A huge heavenly joss stick was burning with green smoke. By the side of the sacrificial altar, stood a white-robed old man who looked like an immortal, with his eyes closed as he rested, with an unfathomable attitude. Surrounding the high stage were rows of exquisite delicacies, desserts etc. long tables. Those were the seats to receive VIPs. Three Springs Sect was the West Continent's competition. Three Springs Sect's change of ownership to the West Continent was an extremely joyous matter. In the entire garden, there were at least 10 over famous and promising people from various powerhouses. Even those powerhouses who usually had enmity with each other, when they came to Three Springs Sect, they all laughed off their enmity, not creating any trouble in Three Springs Sect. It was almost midnight, which was around 9 in the morning. Three Springs Sect's garden was already filled with guests. Even the representatives from other continents who came later squeezed together with a group of people, wanting to join in on the liveliness. The bustling garden was bustling with noise. Suddenly they heard a notification: "The monarch has arrived." Following that, they saw Ling Fengying dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe as he slowly walked over. He only brought along a eunuch, who was holding an exquisite jade box in his hand. When the crowd saw that, they all stood up to welcome him. Greetings to the monarch. The people present here were basically existences that could shake the entire Western continent 3 times with a casual shake. There was no need for them to kneel down when they saw Ling Fengying. Ling Fengying waved his hand warmly. "Everyone, please don't be so courteous. Today's main venue is Three Springs Sect and I am only here as a friend to congratulate Qing Luo on inheriting Three Springs Sect." The crowd started to laugh softly. Ling Fengying's words made everyone's hearts beat like drums. Anyone with a discerning eye knew. The reason why Ling Fengying was able to become the new monarch was all because of Yi Qing Luo's blessings. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, Ling Fengying might still be dispirited in the Crown Prince Palace. Looking at how Ling Fengying only brought along a father-in-law to attend Yi Qing Luo's succession ceremony, it could be seen that the relationship between the new sovereign and the future sovereign of the Three Springs Sect was not ordinary. After all, a monarch is a monarch, and a subject is a subject. A monarch is the son of heaven, so there is no need for him to lower himself and force himself to be friends with the 7th girl. On the high platform, an old voice broke the guesses of the crowd. Everyone's gaze immediately followed the sound. On the high platform, the luxuriously dressed old ancestor had a gloomy expression on his face, as though he was unattainable. Although old ancestor's words seemed to be elevating Ling Fengying and belittling their Three Springs Sect, saying that they were unable to climb up to the royal family. However, his words were too rude. Even if it was Ling Fengying, at this moment, his expression was also rather ugly. He coughed dryly and said in a gentle voice, "Ancestor, have you misunderstood something?" Chapter 2071. Old Grand Madam's unyielding attitude, no matter who it was, would be able to tell the deep meaning behind it. Ling Fenging stopped the words he was about to say. The expression on his face was still gentle and calm. But beneath his eyes, there was an indistinct sharp glint. This old Grand Madam. What did she mean? Why, it seemed as though she wanted to draw a line between the royal family and Yiqing Luo. Old Grand Madam's eyes are really sharp, to be able to see through the sovereign's true thoughts at one look. Suddenly, a sweet smiling voice was heard from the backyard of the garden. Yiqing Luo strolled leisurely with her hands behind her back, as she slowly walked over from the backyard's small path. That leisurely look totally didn't show the solemnity and nervousness of her inheriting the position of Three Springs sect sovereign. Yiqing Luo's dressing today was slightly more formal. She was still wearing a red long dress. But today, she had put in quite a bit of effort on the long dress. Different from usual, it was so simple and elegant that there was no pattern at all. The red long dress which she wore today was adorned with silver scales, sparkling with a dazzling brilliance. Her long black hair was tied up simply and a simple cherry blossom jade hairpin was inserted diagonally. It looked extremely elegant and quick-witted. Standing on the stage, they instantly felt an extremely majestic aura being released from the young lady. Everyone's mind instantly surfaced 4 words, 9. Heavens. Xian. Female. You, why aren't you wearing the sovereign's attire which I have prepared for you? Old Grand Madam saw Yiqing Luo and suddenly slammed the table as she stood up, as her brows creased into a bundle. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave an evil and flamboyant smile. I feel that wearing my own clothes is more comfortable. Presumptuous. Old Grand Madam's face was filled with anger. Usually you throw a tantrum and I can indulge you. But today is such a solemn day and you're still so presumptuous. Yiqing Luo's brows rose. Facing the raging Old Grand Madam, her lips curled slightly. When has Old Grand Madam ever indulged me? 7th girl. Old Grand Madam seemed as though she had not expected Yiqing Luo to embarrass her in front of so many people. Yiqing Luo dug her ears. Old Grand Ancestor, I'm just beside you and I can hear you. There's no need to shout so loudly, leave your voice. Later on, you still need to express your feelings towards the new sovereign. The old ancestor was so angry that his entire body was trembling. The hand that was holding onto the walking stick also had green veins popping out. Lady Biming stood at the side and immediately took the old ancestor's arm. She said gently, Old ancestor, I know that you haven't been able to rest well for a few nights in order to prepare the sect leader's attire for Miss Seven. After all, Miss Seven is only a 15-year-old child. How would she like such dark-colored clothes? Please don't bother with a child. Her voice was not loud, but it was not soft either. It explained the current situation in an appropriate manner. Ancestor, today is a big day for the Three Springs sect. Why don't you just smile? Don't look so serious. You're scaring the juniors, Biming advised warmly. The old ancestor's expression became more restrained. The hand that was holding onto the walking stick tightened. Following that, she raised her head and looked at Yiqing Luo as her gaze became gentler. Forget it, forget it. I'm old and don't understand the colors that you youngsters like. Since 7th girl likes to wear this attire, then wear this attire to inherit the sovereign's position. Saying that, she returned to her seat with Lady Biming's support. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to haggle with the old Grand Madam. Chapter 2072. Yiqing Luo's words caused ripples in everyone's hearts. In the eyes of outsiders. Outsiders. Earlier when she said that Ling Fenging was barely friends with Yiqing Luo, it was from old Grand Madam. Yiqing Luo, this outsider, was she referring to? Old Grand Madam. TSK, why did it feel that today's Three Springs sect patriarch succession ceremony wasn't as simple as what they had imagined? Somehow, the amount of information was a little too much. Ling Fengning stood up as he wasn't anxious nor impatient as he laughed warmly. My and Qing Luo's brotherhood had already been set when Qing Luo just entered the Heavenly Academy. You're my best brother, so how would I possibly force myself on you? His words were sincere and gentle. Especially when he spoke to Yi Qing Luo, he used I to address himself. Which meant that he had let go of his monarch position to interact with Yi Qing Luo. Even if it was the previous Three Springs sect patriarch Yi Tianquan, he probably wouldn't receive such courteous treatment from the previous monarch. This was called barely treating Yi Qing Luo as a friend. The two of them were obviously very good brothers. Not to mention a man and a woman, there was no such thing as pure friendship. Not to mention how the crowd didn't suspect that the so-called brotherhood between Yi Qing Luo and Ling Fengning actually had a hidden meaning. With such an outstanding man like the overlord around. The other men were all scum alright. Unless Yi Qing Luo was blind. Which was why she didn't want the overlord to have an affair with Ling Fengning in the dark. So these two absolutely had a clean brotherhood relationship that couldn't be any cleaner. Yi Qing Luo knew that right from the start when Ling Fengning entered the garden, he had lowered his stance and said in public that they were friends. But he wanted to make use of her current rallying power. Ling Fengning had just ascended the throne not long ago. Whereas Yi Qing Luo was now the West Continent's hero, a famous person in the West Continent. Only by borrowing Yi Qing Luo's current power would he be able to stabilize his own position. This kind of use, if it was in the past, Yi Qing Luo would have hated it. But, now that she was so cooperative, she also had her own plans. She curved her charming eyes as her gaze landed on the jade box which the eunuch was holding behind Ling Fengning. Following that, her face revealed a crafty smile. Then how can I see your sincerity? Ling Fengning took a look at eunuch behind him. The eunuch quickly stepped forward and raised the jade box high above his head with both hands. In a shrill voice, he said, in order to celebrate 7th Miss Ye's ascension as the new leader of the Three Springs sect, the monarch has specially presented this to 7th Miss Ye as a congratulatory gift. Oh! What congratulatory gift? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Ling Fengning narrowed his eyes as he acutely sensed that Yi Qing Luo's reaction was a little strange. As though Yi Qing Luo had long known what the congratulatory gift he had prepared was. He suppressed the strange feeling in his heart and waved his hand, indicating for his eunuch to open the jade box. The eunuch accepted the order and respectfully opened the jade box. The monarch has specially gifted the tiger emblem to the 7th Miss of the night to show his sincerity. The crowd burst into an uproar. Even the old ancestor could not sit still. Elder ancestor shuddered and slammed the table. She stood up abruptly and stared at the box in her eunuch's hand. What? Tiger Tally. Monarch, how could you give such a precious thing to the Tiger Tally? That was something that could summon the Western Continent's royal army. He gifted the Tiger Talisman to Yi Qing Luo. If Yi Qing Luo had the intention to rebel, then she would be able to occupy the Western Continent in minutes. Was there something wrong with Monarch's brain? Everyone couldn't believe that Monarch actually took such a huge risk to gift the Tiger Tally to Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 2073. Only one piece. That was already very heaven-defying, alright. 1 Three Springs sect and 200,000 imperial soldiers. If Yi Qing Luo wanted to rebel, it was just a matter of minutes. Ling Fengning smiled warmly. Is Qing Luo satisfied with this sincerity? Yi Qing Luo smiled lightly and nodded, satisfied. Ling Fengning gave him a look. The eunuch held the jade box and was about to step forward. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shook her head. Don't be in a hurry to send it over, everything shall wait till after the succession ceremony. Eunuch stopped in his tracks as he turned back to look at Ling Fengning. Seeing Ling Fengning nod his head, Eunuch then kept the jade box and returned to Ling Fengying's side. Because Ling Fengying was expressing his sincerity, the atmosphere of the ceremony gradually livened up. After Yiqing Luo greeted everyone, the sound of a gong could be heard from the altar. The old man who was meditating like an old monk suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly, "The auspicious time to worship the heavens has arrived. Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heavenly worship ceremony." A deep voice suddenly exploded in the crowd like a clap of thunder. Everyone was shocked. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as she gave an impatient look at the elderly man as her lips twitched. "We're not far from each other, can't you lower your voice?" The old man was expressionless and extremely serious. "Young sect master, please move to the altar and carry out the heaven offering ceremony." Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. However, he still walked towards the altar. Behind him, the old ancestor leaned on his walking stick, his face dark and terrifying, his malicious eyes filled with a piercingly cold light. Watching as Yiqing Luo approached the altar step by step, the old ancestor seemed to be unable to restrain himself any longer and was about to charge forward. Lady Baiming grabbed the elder ancestor's hand in time and said in a low voice, "Elder ancestor, please think twice before you act. Miss Seven is no longer the same as before. If the elder ancestor insists on stopping Miss Seven's succession ceremony and provokes Miss Seven's retaliation, the consequences will be unimaginable." The old ancestor's footsteps stopped. "Old ancestor, don't think about anything. Just quietly watch as seventh young mistress becomes the Three Springs sect master. I can say with certainty that as long as seventh miss becomes the sect leader of the Three Springs sect, our Three Springs sect will definitely become the leader of the four great sects in the future." Baiming knew the old ancestor's state of mind very well. Every word that he said was right into the old ancestor's heart. The elder ancestor gripped his walking stick tightly and finally sat back in his seat. Towards the small movements behind her, how could Yiqing Luo, who had an extremely strong sense of perception, not sense it? Hearing the sound of old Grand Madam sitting down, Yiqing Luo laughed coldly in her heart. This Baiming woman was truly intelligent. She had seen through everything so clearly. It was no wonder that such an intelligent woman could grasp the heart of the old ancestors so firmly within a short period of time when she was the head of the family. It was precisely because of Baiming's intelligence. The Baiming clan was also very smart and would not choose to become enemies with Yiqing Luo. He walked to the altar. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked at the solemn old man beside her. This old man was an elder of the Three Springs sect. It was said that he had lived in the Three Springs sect for 500 years. Other than the important matters of the Three Springs sect, this sect elder would absolutely not appear. The Three Springs sect master succession ceremony had always been presided over by the sect elder. The so-called heaven offering ceremony. And it was because of the legends regarding the four great sections. The four great sects were the legends of the God clan's tomb guardians. Therefore, the sect elder had to ask the heavens for an answer during the sect master's heaven offering ceremony. Chapter 2074. Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. This sect elder was extremely disdainful towards her. Thinking of old Grand Madam and the sect elder's attitude, Yiqing Luo was no longer surprised. It didn't matter whether they liked her or how they treated her. "Young matriarch, please take a step forward and raise the smoke to worship the heavens." Raising the smoke meant lighting the incense and kowtowing. Yiqing Luo stood in front of the altar and didn't move. The sect elder had already stuffed 3 incense sticks into Yiqing Luo's fingers. He immediately stretched out his hand and pressed Yiqing Luo's shoulder, trying to force her to kowtow. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she squinted her eyes in displeasure when the sect elder made his move. She was about to grab the sect elder's wrist. Suddenly, a loud boom sound was heard. From the sky, a majestic profound energy came straight towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The sect elder reacted swiftly. Just as he sensed the profound energy, he immediately let go of Yi Qing Luo's shoulder and quickly retreated to avoid the profound energy attack. Damn old man. Yi Qing Luo cursed in her heart as her lips twitched with a sneer. Her 5 fingers moved and the glower flame fan opened up on her fingertips. A raging hurricane shot out from the glower flame fan. It collided with that profound energy attack. A loud bam was heard and Yi Qing Luo directly used her overwhelming strength to fiercely suppress that oncoming profound chi back to where it came from. Ah! A scream was heard. A figure fell from the sky, receiving the power of Yi Qing Luo's hurricane and his own strength. That person had not lost his life. When he hit the ground, he suddenly flipped over and stabilized his body as he half knelt on the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Second young master. The lady's incredulous cry was heard from the high platform as Bei Mingshi staggered forward and knelt beside the person who sneaked an attack on Yi Qing Luo. That person was none other than Yi Fengru. It was Yi Fengru who should be locked up in the palace's dungeon. Bei Mingshi held Yi Fengru's hand and cried out in fright, "Second young master, why did you do this? Today is 7th Mrs. Succession ceremony, how could you? Bai Ming's palm warmed Yi Fengru's cold hand. His eyes, which were originally filled with hatred as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, slowly shifted onto Bai Ming clan. He recognized the Bai Ming clan. The expression on his face softened a little. The viciousness in his eyes also faded a little. "Mother," Yi Fengru said in a hoarse voice. Bai Ming's tears fell like rain. As a member of a large clan, as a concubine, she had no right to call her young master by his name, even if that young master was her own son. And her son could not call her mother in front of others. Now, hearing the word mother, Bai Ming's heart throbbed with pain. She held her son's hand tightly and said in a choked voice, "Son, listen to me, don't think about avenging Miss C anymore." At the mention of the name Miss C, Yi Fengru's body stiffened and his clear eyes were once again tainted with madness. He fiercely shook off Bai Ming clan as he stood up and stared at Yi Qing Luo malevolently. "Yi Qing Luo, you have no right to inherit this sovereign position, get down from the altar." "Son! You!" Bai Ming clan wanted to pounce forward. Yi Qing Luo immediately moved and shifted to Bai Ming clan's side as she grabbed her arm. "Yi Fengru's condition is not right, don't go over, he might hurt you." Chapter 2075. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked at the hysterical and crazy Yi Fengru. She let go of Bei Ming's hand as her eyes remained calm. "Now it's not about whether I am willing to save him or not, but whether he is willing to let himself go. 7th Miss, actually his nature is not bad, he is bewitched." How could Bei Ming not see her son's abnormal craziness? Yi Qing Luo waved her hand, "Stand at the back." Bei Ming clenched her handkerchief tightly, but he. "I promised you that I will give him a chance." Yi Qing Luo glanced at Bei Ming indifferently. Bei Ming bit her lower lip as she chose to believe in Yi Qing Luo. Now, she could only choose to believe in Yi Qing Luo. Bei Ming retreated to old Grand Madame's side as she clenched her handkerchief nervously as she stared at Yi Fengru's direction worriedly. She ignored old Grand Madame who was standing beside her as she heaved a sigh of relief. Old Grand Madame's fingers which were holding onto her walking stick tightened. Her sinister eyes looked at Yi Fengru. She totally ignored Yi Fengru's craziness. Her eyes were even filled with joy as she rejoiced that Yi Fengru was here. "Yi Fengru, I don't care if you are pretending to be crazy or acting dumb or who bewitched you." Yi Qing Luo's sweet voice was pleasant to listen to. But unfortunately, her tone was cold like a cold current, penetrating into one's heart. Her expression was indifferent without any emotions. Everyone present felt a chill down their spines as an inexplicable chill rose from the bottom of their feet as they couldn't help but shiver. Considering that the Baiming clan has spent some effort on Ziling and little you, I can give you a chance. She walked slowly towards Yifeng Ru's direction. Either you put down your weapons now and find a place to sit at the guest seating area and finish the succession ceremony. Otherwise, I'll kill you now and continue with the succession ceremony. Her words were filled with a smile. But it still couldn't conceal the coldness in her words. Everyone sat upright, straightened their backs and looked down, indicating that they would only listen quietly and not disturb. Yifeng Ru's crazed eyes were dyed with fiery flames. He stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, his facial features were sinister and terrifying. Yiqing Luo, I will absolutely not let Three Springs sect fall into the hands of an outsider. You're not a member of the Yi clan at all. What right do you have to become the sect master of the Three Springs sect? He lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. Immediately, a strong wave of profound energy rippled out from the ground beneath his feet. As the hurricane blew, some light items and decorations were scattered all over the ground. Yifeng Ru's words were like a stone thrown into a still pond. It set off layers upon layers of ripples. Chapter 2076. Enough, Baiming, since second brother has already told us the truth, we don't need to hide anymore. Old Grand Madam's aged voice interrupted Baiming's explanation. Baiming was stunned and turned to look at Old Grand Madam in disbelief. Old Grand Madam stretched out her hand and pressed on Baiming's shoulder. Her malicious eyes flashed with a trace of strange cold light. That cold light made Baiming's breath tighten. She pursed her red lips and did not dare to continue. Then, Elder Ancestor let go of her and slowly walked to the front of the high platform with the help of her walking stick. Everyone's eyes were focused on Old Grand Madam. What Old Grand Madam said just now had really disrupted everyone's train of thought. Could it be, Yiqing Luo was really not from the Yi family? Under everyone's hopeful gaze, Old Grand Madam's hands rested on his walking stick as he cleared his throat and his gaze sunk as he looked at everyone present, sighing softly. What number 2 said is right, Yiqing Luo is indeed not a member of our Yi family. What? 7th Miss Yi is not from the Yi family. That is to say, 7th Miss Yi is not the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. How is that possible? How could Madam Yi not be from the Yi family? Her talent, her courage, and her strength. Except for the descendant of the Three Springs sect, one of the 4 major sects, only she could reach such a level. Who else could have such an advantage in cultivation? Old Grand Madam's words caused everyone present to express their disbelief. Amidst these incredulous questions and doubts, a different voice gradually emerged. To tell you the truth, I felt very strange just now. Old Grand Madam's attitude towards 7th Miss Yi is really totally not like how you treat your granddaughter. Yes, I have this feeling too. I just wanted to say that Old Grand Madam does not seem to want 7th Miss Yi to inherit the position of patriarch. Old Grand Madam does not want Three Springs sect to fall into the hands of an outsider. If 7th Miss Yi is really not from the Yi family, then she indeed does not have the right to inherit the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch. Listening to the voices behind, it constantly stirred up the emotions of the surrounding people. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. She narrowed her eyes. She stared at those who doubted her qualifications to inherit the position of the sect master with a faint smile. These people, he looked very unfamiliar. Each of them looked to be in their 20s or 30s. There was an unconcealable hostility between his brows. It was obvious that his hands were stained with blood, and he was someone who lived on the edge of a knife. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a ridiculing cold arc. She raised her eyes and looked at the old ancestor calmly and indifferently. I have to admit that the old ancestor's heart is really big. While watching the Three Springs sect fall, you still have to drag the younger generation into the abyss. She shook her head helplessly and clicked her tongue. The Yi clan must have done too many wicked things in their previous lives to have such an elder who cheats the younger generation like you. Seventh girl. Old Grand Madam and Yiqing Luo exchanged glances, her voice still maintaining the old helpless tone. This old one just can't bear to see Three Springs sect, just like that, fall into the hands of outsiders. This old one must tell everyone about this matter. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly, tisk. She knew that old Grand Madam would absolutely not let the patriarch's succession ceremony go on smoothly so easily. Looking at the heartache and helplessness on the face of the old ancestor, could she use a sentence that was not appropriate but the meaning was similar, to express her own feelings? Chapter 2077. Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo, have you ever thought why? You are the Yi family's daughter, the future young matriarch of Three Springs sect. But unfortunately, you are living in an abandoned courtyard, eating leftovers that are worse than the servants. You have even eaten the dog's food. In this Three Springs sect, no matter who it is, they can bully you, tease you, they don't like you. Yi Fengru got old Grand Madam's cooperation. His heart was getting more and more arrogant. He laughed loudly, his sinister facial features made his laughter look extremely treacherous and sinister. Yiqing Luo smiled coldly, there was no trace of emotion on her face. That pair of charming eyes, extremely calm and indifferent. As if she totally didn't put Yi Fengru's words to heart. Yi Fengru laughed and laughed. He didn't get any response. The laughter gradually came to an abrupt end. He frowned and stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo, trying to find any flaw on her face. That fiery red long-robed young lady was expressionless from beginning to end. Only that cold sneer at the corner of her mouth added a bit of liveliness to that gorgeous face. Yi Fengru's heart had suffered a serious blow. He thought that as long as he said this matter out, Yiqing Luo would definitely not be able to take this blow. After all, Yiqing Luo had always thought that she was the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. And relying on the title of young matriarch, she had bullied many people. And most people, after hearing that they were not from the Yi family, the first reaction would be to think about who their biological parents were. But Yiqing Luo totally didn't look like she could not take the blow. On the contrary, she already knew everything. Yi Fengru was unwilling, his facial features tightened, gritted his teeth and continued, Yiqing Luo, old Grand Madam doesn't like you. Every time father sees you, other than disgust, there's hatred. Do you want to know the reason? Ha! Do you know? That shameless mother of yours, cheating on father. Pa! The crisp sound of a slap interrupted Yi Fengru's voice. Yi Fengru cried out in pain, blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. But he wasn't angry, instead he laughed. Yiqing Luo stood in front of him at a close distance. Her fiery red dress fluttered along with the hurricane, like a butterfly flapping its wings and about to take flight. However, in the next instant, the hurricane surrounding her suddenly formed a stream of air that struck Yi Fengru's body. Yi Fengru didn't even have time to scream. He was sent flying backward. Yiqing Luo's expression was cold, her pair of charming eyes were filled with anger and chilliness. His black hair fluttered in the wind as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws. At this moment, she was like a fairy descending from the heavens. It was a majestic aura that reigned above the world. Chapter 2078. Yi Fengru was fearless. All right, kill me, ha ha ha. Anyway, Qian has already died in your hands, I don't want to live alone. Suddenly, his expression turned cold and his tone changed. But, before I die, I will make all the shameless things that your shameless mother has done public. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, streams of powerful airflow surged around her body. Like a whirlpool, rolling like a tide. At this moment, those bright and alluring eyes seemed to be dyed with a blood-red color. Yifeng Ru's laughter stopped abruptly. He was extremely far away from Yiqing Luo. When Yiqing Luo's body was surrounded by one after another whirlpool, Yifeng Ru was directly knocked away by that whirlpool. Yifeng Ru's laughter stopped abruptly. His face turned extremely pale in an instant. Yiqing Luo's strength. It was so powerful that it was beyond his expectations. Heavens! Seventh Miss Yi is a Sky Xian Supreme Master. What a powerful strength. Supreme Being Expert. Supreme Being. Seventh Miss Yi seems to be only 15 years old, a 15-year-old Sky Profound Overlord. There is only one person in the world, only one. Has everyone forgotten that Miss Yi's seventh young lady has only just begun her cultivation this year? The whole audience was silent because of this sentence. That's right, how could they forget? In the past 15 years, Yiqing Luo was famous for being a waste. In other words, Yiqing Luo had cultivated from a waste to a Sky Profound Overlord in just a few months, in less than a year. F***ck. They wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. They would rather believe in another folk legend. Yiqing Luo was actually pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, hiding her true profound grade until she found the big backer, the Overlord, then she dared to boldly tell everyone about her strength. On this side, everyone was so shocked by Yiqing Luo that they couldn't regain their senses. The Baiming clan's face was pale, struggling to rush forward. Seventh Miss, please have mercy, but she hadn't moved a step. However, old ancestor clutched her shoulders tightly. The force was so great that it seemed as if it wanted to dislodge her shoulders. Baiming struggled madly, his face twitching in pain. Ancestor, I beg you to let me go. Ru is my life, I can't lose him, no matter how much Baiming cried or screamed. Old ancestor kept a gloomy face and refused to let go of his hand no matter what. Under the pressure of the powerful dark force, Yifeng Ru was forced to roll on the ground several times. His chest couldn't withstand such pressure, and he felt a metallic taste in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yifeng Ru propped himself up on a rockery in the garden and fiercely wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth. He laughed heartily. Yiqing Luo, don't tell me. You're not interested in your mother's matters? Chapter 2079. There was no need for Yifeng Ru to continue. Everyone was able to imagine it. It was nothing more than Yiqing Luo's mother making use of that night to turn the child in her belly into Yi Tianquang's child. Everyone looked at Yiqing Luo with a bit of inquisitiveness and scrutiny. But Yiqing Luo's expression was still calm, as though anything, to her, was of no importance. Yifeng Ru explained the matter in detail. He wanted to see Yiqing Luo unable to accept it and on the verge of collapse. But Yiqing Luo still had this indifferent expression. On the contrary, Yifeng Ru's emotions were getting more and more unstable. He clenched his fists, the veins on his forehead bulged, gritted his teeth and continued, "You're a bastard who doesn't even know who your father is. For so many years, you have occupied the position of the Yi family's first wife's daughter, Three Springs sect's young matriarch. On what basis? Based on your fickle, shameless mother who deceived your father." His questioning made everyone present breathe cautiously. For fear of making the slightest sound and becoming the target of public criticism. Everyone's mood was both complicated and excited. The complicated thing was that there was a lot of information in Three Springs sect that they had heard about. If this matter spread too far in the world of martial artists in the future, there was a high possibility that they would be blamed for it. As the saying goes, the more you know, the earlier you die. What was exciting was that the information they heard today was the rumored descendants of the Divine Emperor's Tomb Keeper, the Three Springs sect, the secret history of one of the four major sects. This kind of thing, if it happened on a normal day, it would be absolutely impossible to find out this kind of secret history even if they tried their best to inquire about it. Everyone's heart was tightly clenched along with the confrontation between Yifeng Ru and Yiqing Luo. Just when everyone thought that Yiqing Luo would absolutely go berserk again and beat Yifeng Ru up. But... giggle giggle. Giggle giggle. A coquettish laughter broke the stiff atmosphere. That laughter, unbridled and arrogant. There was a kind of arrogant and fearless feeling. This laughter. It made Yifeng Ru's hair stand on end when he heard it. Yifeng Ru, is there something wrong with your brain? Yiqing Luo shot a contemptuous glance at him, her eyes were filled with disdain. As you said, in these 15 years, Yi Tianquang simply didn't treat me as his daughter. I'm just a person who doesn't even know my father. Then, why, until now, am I still the young sect master of the Three Springs sect? Yiqing Luo's words had just ended. Yifeng Ru's face darkened. Yiqing Luo beamed as she continued, you asked me why, then I'll tell you. Because Yi Tianquang insisted on making me the young matriarch. Chapter 2080. Yifeng Ru didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be able to respond calmly at this moment. And her response made his words stuck in his throat. His face was ashen, and his scarlet and crazed eyes were wide open like copper bells. His whole body was taut and his muscles were distinct. After a long while, he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth, how would I know what father is thinking? But you are not from the Yi family, this is an indelible fact. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and sneered. The indifference on her face and the disdain in her eyes made the surrounding crowd believe Yiqing Luo's words without a doubt. Their gazes towards Yifeng Ru were filled with suspicion. Old Grand Madam didn't wait for Yiqing Luo to speak and said, "Seventh girl, what second brother said, is true. You are indeed not a child of the Yi family." She was the only elder in the Yi family and also the most senior elder. Her words were more convincing than Yifeng Ru's. Old Grand Madam swept a glance at everyone and sighed softly, that your Tianquang didn't know that you are not his daughter, but eighth brother's birth. That year, they thought that Yiqing Luo's mother was pregnant with Yiqing Luo, so they schemed to enter her courtyard. But after 8 months, Yiqing Luo's mother unexpectedly gave birth prematurely. The first to come out was Yiqing Luo. After Yiqing Luo was carried out by the midwife, they discovered that there was another child in her womb. But because it was a premature baby, Yifeng Yu's condition was very bad. After Yifeng Yu was born, he was on the verge of death, as though he would die any time. This was the son of the Yi family. How could old Grand Madam bear to let her son die at birth? More importantly, on the few young masters and young ladies of the Yi family, old Grand Madam hadn't found one with the imprint of the future patriarch. This son might get the inheritance of the patriarch, the imprint of the God Emperor. Hence, old Grand Madam made use of the Yi family's ancestral forbidden art, hoping to use the blood of her twin sister, Yiqing Luo, to cast the forbidden art to save Yifeng Yu. But the forbidden art failed. Because Yiqing Luo's blood and Yifeng Yu's blood were totally incompatible. The two of them were not real siblings. This caused the old ancestor and Yi Tianquang to be endlessly shocked. He couldn't believe it. They were born from the same stomach, so why weren't they brother and sister? In the end, Yi Tianquang could only use his own blood as a primer to let the old ancestor use a forbidden technique to save Yifeng Yu's life. Yi Tianquang's blood could fuse with Yifeng Yu's, and the Yi clan's forbidden technique could also succeed. This was enough to prove that Yifeng Yu was Yi Tianquang's flesh and blood. There was no doubt about it. But Yifeng Yu and Yiqing Luo's blood could not merge. In other words, Yiqing Luo was not Yi Tianquang's flesh and blood. Born of the same parents, but not of the same bloodline. How is this possible? Your Yi family doesn't want Madame Yi Qing Luo to inherit the position of patriarch, so there's no need to weave such a ridiculous lie, right? That's right. Who would believe such words? Madame Yi Qing Luo doesn't care about the sovereign's position, all right. Don't forget that Madame Yi Qing Luo also has her own power. The Yi clan's face is too ugly. All kinds of discussions interrupted old Grand Madame's recollection. This kind of thing was really too bizarre. No matter who it was, they couldn't believe such words. Looking at old Grand Madame's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo from the beginning to the end. Chapter 2082. Everyone's thoughts were running wild. However, Yi Qing Luo was still calm and there was no change in the expression on her face. She stood there lazily. The strong wind around her fluttered her fiery red dress. It made the beautiful woman look even more beautiful than before. After a while, the young lady's long eyelashes moved. Everyone's heart trembled along with him. They were guessing what method Yi Qing Luo would use to retaliate. Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with color, as though it was decorated with thousands of stars, sparkling brightly. Her footsteps moved. Her figure flashed in front of everyone. Only an afterimage could be seen. Yi Qing Luo's figure had appeared on the stage. She stood beside old Grand Madame, tilted her head and looked at old Grand Madame with a warm smile. Old Grand Madame, are you done? If you are, go to the back and sit down, don't delay the auspicious time of the succession. The entire crowd was silent again. No one had expected this. After experiencing old Grand Madame's words to draw a clear line between her and the Yi family, Yi Qing Luo was still thinking about the patriarch's succession ceremony. Didn't she understand old Grand Madame's intention? Or perhaps she wanted to play dumb and inherit the patriarch's position first. Old Grand Madame was stunned. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was really out of her expectations. After being stunned for a while, old Grand Madame stared at the smiling young lady and said with a steely face, "Seventh girl, Three Springs sect doesn't belong to you, you can't force it." There was a hint of threat in her words. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly, "But old Grand Madame, what else do you think you can use to stop me?" Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, like a cunning fox. Between her brows, there was a teasing smile. According to old Grand Madame's story, since I'm not from the Yi family, then I don't need to respect the Yi family's elders. She said with a smile, so I must let the succession ceremony continue. How can old Grand Madame stop me? You. The elder ancestor's expression turned ugly. Even if you don't have the blood of the Yi family flowing in your body, you've grown up in the Yi family for the past 15 years. You've called me elder ancestor for 15 years. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. So what? The girl's actions were clearly very normal. However, for some reason, the old ancestor's heart tightened. Instinctively, he took a step back. You want to destroy the Three Springs sect. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Old Grand Madame's voice tightened as she stared at Yi Qing Luo as she questioned angrily. I don't have the blood of the Yi clan flowing in my veins, so even if I kill Yi Fengru and you, I won't be struck by lightning, right? Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she laughed mischievously. She raised her hand and casually flipped her hair. Chapter 2083. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and smiled enchantingly. Did I say that I want to participate in the worship process? You. The sect elder choked for a moment and straightened his face. If you don't participate in the worship process, you can't proceed with the patriarch's succession ceremony. This is the rule set by the Three Springs sect ancestors. Yi Qing Luo smiled even brighter. I didn't say that I won't participate in the worship process. The sect elder's face sunk. Yi Qing Luo. Are you toying with this elder? Yi Qing Luo glanced at him disapprovingly, insolently and arrogantly. Teasing? What do you have that is worth me teasing you? His blunt words caused the onlookers to roar with laughter. The sect elder's face was filled with gloomy clouds. His hands under his sleeves clenched into fists. It had been 100 years since anyone dared to speak to him in this manner. This young lady dared to be so insolent. Thinking of the supreme aura she released earlier. The sect elder's eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. At the age of 15, she had already stepped into the sky profound realm. She was indeed a rare genius in the world. If this young lady was from the Yi family, as the sect elder of Three Springs sect, he would be deeply gratified. But this young lady was not from the Yi family. This kind of talent would only bring misfortune to the Yi family. If they didn't eliminate the roots, it would bring endless harm to Three Springs sect. The sect elder's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with murderous intent. This murderous intent was fleeting. But Yi Qing Luo still sensed it. Yi Qing Luo sneered in her heart and swept a disdainful glance at the sect elder. If the sect elder wanted to make a move on her, she didn't mind using the sect elder as a practice target. She could tell. This sect elder's profound grade was also in the sky profound realm. His grade was about 3rd or 4th grade. Although after the profound sky realm, the gap between each grade was as wide as the heavens. But Yi Qing Luo felt that since it was a practice target, this difference was just right. But before that, she had to settle the sect leader's succession ceremony first. She walked past the sect elder and walked directly to the altar. Sect elder, please don't waste everyone's time. Everyone here has come from their busy schedules to attend this succession ceremony. As the sect elder of the Three Springs sect, you are disgracing the name of the Three Springs sect by wasting everyone's time. The sect elder was so angry that he strode toward the altar. I've said it before. You're not a descendant of the Three Springs sect. You have no right to inherit the Three Springs sect. He stretched out his hand, wanting to stop Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo took a small step back and gave a low laugh. Sect elder, when did I say that I want to inherit Three Springs sect? The sect elder was taken aback. The onlookers were also stunned. It seemed like Yi Qing Luo had indeed never mentioned that she was going to inherit Three Springs sect from the start. However, she had been urging the succession ceremony to continue. Wasn't he going to inherit the Three Springs sect? Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about everyone's dazed gazes. Her hand, facing a certain point in the sky, opened up slightly. The young lady stood against the light. Her beauty was not as arrogant and wanton as before. Instead, there was a kind of extremely gentle warmth. That pair of wanton and devilish charming eyes. At this moment, it was filled with a deep smile. The smile on her red lips was bright and radiant. Such a Yi Qing Luo. It was everyone's first time seeing it. Their hearts were inexplicably agitated. The young lady's fair jade-like hands slipped out from her sleeves. Slender fingers, stretched towards the sky. Chapter 2084. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who was Yi Qing Luo talking to? Future patriarch. Wasn't she talking to herself? Everyone looked towards the direction where Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand. They saw a dazzling ray on the horizon, adding a gorgeous color to the entire sky. Carrying a majestic and powerful force, it descended from the sky. That was a leopard beast with shiny black fur. The leopard beast's body was extremely sturdy, about 3 to 4 times the size of an ordinary leopard beast. A pair of black eyes, extremely vigilant, with a strong warning color. Dong! The black leopard beast landed on the ground. 4 huge leopard claws stepped out 4 strong air currents. The dust on the ground stirred up, a hurricane suddenly arose. The sharp claws that stepped on the ground, like a sharp blade, shining with a sharp luster. And the most shocking thing was, it was the 2 people sitting on the back of the leopard beast. A man and a woman. When the leopard beast stabilized its footsteps, it proudly swept its eyes around, after confirming that there was no danger. The leopard beast slowly crouched down, lowering its body. 2 figures slowly came down from the leopard beast. The young man was dressed in a navy blue luxurious brocade robe, his black hair neatly tied up, secured by a white jade crown. His figure looked somewhat slender, but also tall and slender. Perhaps it was because of this period of experience. Or perhaps it was because of the dignified and noble clothes on him. The young man's entire aura had an earth-shaking change. His aura was fully unleashed, dignified and luxurious. Behind the youth was a young girl dressed as a plain-colored servant girl. Although she was a servant girl. But looking at the pace that followed the young man, steady and powerful. Graceful figure, thousands of postures. No matter how one looked, she was definitely not an ordinary servant girl. Just these 2 people, the moment they appeared, attracted everyone's attention. Old 8th. When old Grand Madam saw that young man, a trace of disbelief immediately surfaced on her dark face. She stood up abruptly with the help of her walking stick, her body swaying, extremely shocked. Old Grand Madam. Yi Feng Yu cupped his hands, respectfully bowing in the direction of old Grand Madam. Neither servile nor overbearing attitude made old Grand Madam stagger a step back. Lady Baiming supported him in time, unable to believe her own eyes. This young man, a young man with such a majestic and powerful aura. It was Yi Feng Yu. The youngest of the Yi clan, Yi Feng Yu. Yi Feng Yu didn't wait for old Grand Madam's reaction as he withdrew his hand and walked straight towards Yi Qing Luo. When he saw Yi Qing Luo, Yi Feng Yu's youthful face finally revealed a smile that resembled that of a child. Sister. He called out in a daze, his heart full of excitement. Yi Qing Luo walked in front of him. A 15-year-old boy was at the age of growth. The current Yi Feng Yu was 2/3 taller than Yi Qing Luo's head. Yi Qing Luo had to raise her head to look at him. Xiao Yu, go ahead. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she caressed Yi Feng Yu's head, her eyes filled with warmth. Yi Feng Yu nodded vigorously. The young man with a majestic aura in front of everyone just now, the minute he stood in front of Yi Qing Luo, he became the little brother next door. Anyone could tell that the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and Yi Feng Yu was extremely deep. Yi Qing Luo put her hands behind her back, tilted her head and looked at the sect elder with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Sect elder, Xiao Yu is the direct bloodline descendant of Three Springs sect. Do you have any objections to let him inherit the position of sect master? The sect elder had been in closed-door cultivation for such a long time, he didn't know much about the outside world. Listening to Yi Qing Luo's words. Chapter 2085. The position of the Three Springs sect leader was not something that could be easily inherited. Who told Yi Qing Luo that as long as she was a descendant of the Three Springs sect, she would be able to inherit the position of sovereign? How could an immature child inherit the position of the sect master? The sect elder's face darkened. Of course, even if you have any opinions, it has nothing to do with me. The sect elder had just spat out 2 words when he was covered by Yi Qing Luo's disapproving voice. The voice of the sect elder was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. His face turned red. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. Old Grand Madam, do you have anything else to say now? The old ancestor's eyes were filled with shock as he stared at Yi Feng Yu, unable to recover for a long time. She remembered, after Yi Qing Qian led the remnants of the dark forces and joined hands with Yi Fengru to invade Three Springs sect. As Yi Qing Luo's biological brother who had always been doted on, Yi Qing Jian vented her anger on Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu's situation was extremely miserable. She had always thought that Yi Fengyu had died in Yi Qing Qian's hands. Unexpectedly, not only did Yi Fengyu not die. On the contrary, he was no longer like a child who couldn't grow up. Instead, he was extremely dignified and capable of shouldering great responsibilities. The old ancestor's heart trembled fiercely. No, no. I, as an elder of the Three Springs sect, nominate Old Eighth as the new sect leader. The old ancestor stared at Yi Fengyu, his voice trembling. Yi Fengyu was a direct descendant of the Three Springs sect. Yi Qing Qian was no longer considered as a member of the Three Springs sect. Yi Fengru, his appearance was neither human nor ghost. He also had the infamy of killing his own father and forcing the abdication of the throne. He had also joined an underworld power. His reputation had long since been ruined. Now, only Yi Fengyu could shoulder this great responsibility. Even if Yi Fengyu wasn't mature enough. As a grandmother, she could still live for a few more years. She could assist Yi Fengyu and help him grow faster. Furthermore, Yi Fengyu had Yi Qing Luo as his backing. Yi Qing Luo was going to inherit the position of sovereign. The old ancestor couldn't accept it at all. She had been resisting the urge to stop Yi Qing Luo. It was because, only by keeping the secret that Yi Qing Luo wasn't a member of the Yi family. To make Yi Qing Lu the patriarch of Three Springs sect. Only then could the Three Springs sect's reputation be stabilized, and only then could the Three Springs sect return to its rightful status and nobility. In fact, it was just as the Baiming clan had said. Yi Qing Luo had the ability to lead Three Springs sect to become the leader of the four major sects. Therefore, the elder had been suppressing the unwillingness in his heart. Now, the successor was a member of the Yi family. Furthermore, he could make use of Yi Qing Luo's power and reputation. This was the best of both worlds. How could the old ancestor have any objections? No. I don't agree. The sect elder's face darkened. Had it been too long since he, the sect elder, appeared in the Three Springs sect, causing the current Three Springs sect to be so disrespectful? He felt that his dignity as the leader of a sect had been trampled on by a junior. If he allowed these juniors to be arrogant and decide everything for the Three Springs sect, he would be doomed. Then why would he, as an elder of the sect, come here? The more the sect elder thought about it, the angrier he got. How can you be so perfunctory when it comes to inheriting the patriarch's position? Changing this and that, is it a joke for you to assume the position of Three Springs sect's patriarch? He frowned and shot a sharp glare at old ancestor. We haven't seen each other for decades and you've become muddle-headed. Chapter 2086. The sect elder snorted coldly. The previous patriarch knew that Yi Qing Luo was not a descendant of the Yi family, but still insisted on making her the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. This really makes me doubt if the current Yi family still has the ability to inherit the patriarch position. He paused and stared sharply at old Grand Madam. So, I have decided to stay in Three Springs sect for a few months, to investigate carefully, among the remaining descendants of Three Springs sect, who is the most suitable person to become the future patriarch. This. Old Grand Madam's face was ashen. She wanted to stop him but didn't know how. Listening to the sect elder. Apparently, he had made up his mind. The sect elder flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "There's no need to say anything, I have made up my mind. Today's patriarch succession ceremony, shall..." Hee. A contemptuous laughter, extremely ethereal and ethereal. That laughter was as clear as pearls falling on a plate, extremely pleasant to the ears. But, at the same time, it was pleasant to the ears. Bursts of sound rippled in the ears, giving off a strange feeling. Even the sect elder couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his body. Old Grand Madam, it actually doesn't matter if there is this sect elder in the patriarch's succession ceremony. Yiqing Luo's voice was arrogant and presumptuous. She slowly walked to the front of Yi Fengyu and looked at the sect elder with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Old Grand Madam was stunned and quickly understood the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Wasn't Yiqing Luo's arrogance a little too much? Even if Yiqing Luo was already a Sky Profound cultivator. But after all, she had just stepped into Sky Profound first grade not too long ago, and was still not adept at controlling her profound energy. How could she go against the sect elder who had lived for 500 years? She thought that she didn't care about the sect elder's opinion. Could this succession ceremony really ignore the existence of the sect elder? Old Grand Madam wanted Yi Fengyu to become the new patriarch. But she didn't dare to disobey the sect elder in front of him, and didn't dare to go against the sect elder back then. Hearing Yiqing Luo's question, the Grand Elder could only remain silent. When the sect elder heard that, he was so infuriated that his white beard stubble puffed up. Yiqing Luo, since you're not a descendant of Three Springs sect, then Three Springs sect's internal affairs have nothing to do with you. Now, get off the stage for this elder. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and looked at him, someone who hasn't appeared in the past few decades and has never been in charge of Three Springs sect. Do you think you're qualified to say this? As she spoke, she looked at the sect elder with a disdainful smile. In recent years, the Three Springs sect's reputation has been declining. It's not only the imperial family who can easily cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. Even the servants of the other four great profound practitioner clans and clans dare to cause trouble in the Three Springs sect. The Three Springs sect had become a joke. Where were you at that time? Yiqing Luo's voice was very low. There was even a hint of laughter in his voice. When she said the last word, the sound of her voice fell. The entire garden was extremely quiet. The sect elder was also stunned and did not speak for a long time. When he came back to his senses, his face was red with shame and indignation. He couldn't believe that he was provoked by a junior to the point where he couldn't resist at all. His face was ashen as he replied angrily, "The Three Springs sect's reputation has declined. That's because of the previous sect leader's ability and the way he handled things. There's a huge problem. What does all of this have to do with me?" Chapter 2087. Yiqing Luo raised her brows, her long and narrow eyes rippled with ridicule. But Three Springs sect's reputation has dropped, their status has plummeted. No matter which force it is, they can easily step on us. Her slender fingers touched her chin, her eyes curved. What's the difference between this and Three Springs sect heading towards destruction? The sect elder's face turned gloomy, his fists were clenched. You are talking nonsense. Looking at the past few days, Yiqing Qian led the dark forces to invade Three Springs sect, and made Three Springs sect become the assistants of the dark forces to invade the West Continent, almost destroying Three Springs sect's illustrious reputation. Yiqing Luo looked at the sect elder smilingly, but at that time, elder. Where were you? You. The sect elder squeezed out a word from between his teeth, but couldn't spit out the next word. The crowd expressed that the amount of information was getting more and more explosive. Everyone looked at the sect elder with despise and disdain. In the past, the sect elder didn't appear anywhere. He carried the Three Springs sect's glory, and was a rare sky mystic overlord in Nirvana realm. No matter where he went, he would be envied and respected by everyone. Since when did people look at him with disdain and disdain? The sect elder bellowed, "Yiqing Luo, you are an outsider, what right do you have to judge me? Based on the fact that Three Springs sect was revived in my hands." Yiqing Luo replied arrogantly. Sharp arrogance was released from Yiqing Luo's body without any concealment. The powerful and majestic aura overshadowed the sect elder's aura with absolute suppression. Yiqing Luo raised her head, her brows were filled with a lazy expression, but in her eyes, there was a gleam of brilliance, overflowing with youth. Sect elder, when Three Springs sect was in dire straits, you never appeared. To me, it really doesn't matter whether Three Springs sect has a sect elder or not. Yiqing Luo didn't give any face to the sect elder. The young lady's devastatingly beautiful face was calm without any ripples. The long and narrow eyes were supposed to be enchanting and charming. However, the girl's aura was so cold and piercingly cold. The sect elder staggered a few steps back. His pair of flustered eyes stared at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. He was so angry that he was trembling all over. His face was as black as charcoal. Yiqing Luo, you've become a sky mystic overlord at such a young age and you think you're so great that you can be lawless. The sect elder knew that there was no chance of winning if he were to bicker with this young lady. He sneered and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I must teach you a lesson on behalf of the Yi family, you silly little girl who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Yiqing Luo spat out of pooey. Was there a hole in the head of this sect elder? She kept saying that she was not a descendant of the Three Springs sect and had no right to interfere with the internal affairs of the Three Springs sect. And now he was saying that he would teach her a lesson on behalf of the Yi clan. Didn't he find these words contradictory? Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to complain in her heart. The sect elder's attack had already arrived. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she speedily retreated backwards, avoiding his attack. Chapter 2088. Tisk, so this is the so-called sect elder. I've learned something new today. After living for hundreds of years, he's only in the sky profound stage. Our boss Qing Luo had only cultivated for a few months and she's already in the sky profound stage. No wonder this old man is jealous of our boss Qing Luo. Relying on the fact that he's lived for hundreds of years, to bully a junior who had just started cultivating, this is the style of a sect elder. All sorts of ridicule were heard from the surroundings. The representatives from various powerhouses shook their heads in disgust. To the sect elder, what kind of humiliation was this? The second wave of attack which was launched towards Yiqing Luo was completely frozen. There was no way for them to continue. However, among the crowd, there was another wave of voices. What the sect elder said isn't without reason. Since Yiqing Luo is not the descendant of Three Springs sect, then she has no right to ask about Three Springs sect's matters. Who knows who the new patriarch of Three Springs sect is? It's not E7th Mrs. Ah, wrong, it should be Yiqing Luo, and it's not her turn to make the decision. Who knows Yiqing Luo and Yi family's 8th young master's close relationship? If Yi family's 8th young master becomes Three Springs sect's patriarch, it's no different from Yiqing Luo becoming Three Springs sect's patriarch. The scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Due to the crowd's gossip, the sect elder could only swallow his anger. He had never expected this. The representatives who had always been fighting in the open and in the dark, contending for supremacy. They actually worked together for Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo totally didn't care about the outside world's discussions. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Yi Fengyu's wrist, pulling him to the front of the altar. Little you, worship the heavens. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with those people. The most important thing now was to let Yi Fengyu finish the inheritance ceremony and return to the Mu family to recuperate. Yi Fengyu's injuries had not fully recovered. He needed at least another half a month to recuperate. This was the best outcome after Ghost Doctor had treated Yi Fengyu's injuries. Shaochen did not know how long Yi Fengyu's willpower could hold out during the succession ceremony. Presumptuous. What right do you have to preside over the ceremony? The sect elder gnashed his teeth and roared. Off to the side, Yi Fengru furiously roared, "Bastard! Yi Qing Luo, you're just a slut. You're exactly the same as that shameless mother of yours, little bastards born of cheap mothers. Don't even think about making Yi Fengru the sect leader of the Three Springs sect. I will never agree." Suddenly, he leaped up. It turned into a black afterimage, stirring up waves of air that surged in the air. In the air, Yi Qing Luo could vaguely smell a strange smell. Her expression changed and she quickly took out 2 pills from her fingertips. One of them slipped into Yi Fengru's mouth. One of them slipped into Shi Ju's mouth. At the same time, the onlookers suddenly fell down one by one. The air was gradually covered with a layer of black smoke. Poison. He poisoned us. The onlookers reacted and immediately covered their mouths and noses. However, no matter how hard they tried not to breathe, the feeling of powerlessness from being poisoned would still corrode their entire bodies. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, everyone present were either sprawled on the ground or on their seats. The only people who were standing were Yi Qing Luo and Yi Fengru, who had unknowingly sat on Shi Ju's back and leapt into mid-air. "Bastard! Today, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings." Yi Fengru laughed maniacally. In his hand was a black bottle. Chapter 2089. Yi Qing Luo frowned. Yi Fengru's other identity was a dark medicine master. She knew that Yi Fengru would definitely take the opportunity to poison her and win. But Yi Qing Luo didn't expect him to use such a sinister method. The target of the poison was not her. It was everyone present. "Sister." Yi Fengru was on the back of Shi Yan, calling out to her worriedly. Yi Qing Luo had only fed him 2 antidote pills. He didn't see Yi Qing Luo swallowing the pills. Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly. "Xiao Yu, wait a while more, the inheritance ceremony will continue soon." "Sister." Yi Fengru's heart was shaken. At this time, Yi Qing Luo was still thinking about his inheritance ceremony. She was obviously not his biological sister. Why, after knowing everything, would she still treat him so well without any hesitation? He looked at the tall platform, at the slender figure that was bursting with boundless power. He secretly swore in his heart. He must become stronger. He must make Three Springs sect the #1 sect. He wanted his sister to have a home of her own no matter what happened. Three Springs sect would always be his sister's backing. Yi Qing Luo didn't talk to Yi Fengru anymore. She narrowed her eyes and glanced around. Xiao Chen had already analyzed the composition of the black smoke in the air in his mind after refining it 100 times. After confirming that these fainted people were not in danger, Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. These people were the representatives of the major forces in the West Continent. If they all died in Three Springs sect, no matter what the reason was, or who killed them, it would all be related to Three Springs sect. Moreover, so many people from the major forces had died in Three Springs sect. Another storm was about to be set off in the West Continent. Xiao Yu was about to take over Three Springs sect. Yi Qing Luo couldn't let so many people die in Three Springs sect before it was in Xiao Yu's hands. Her gaze finally fell on the complacent Yi Fengru, who was laughing maniacally. Meeting Yi Qing Luo's gaze, Yi Fengru laughed wildly. "Bastard, you want to kill me? Just come at me. As long as you dare to touch me, I will let these people all die in Three Springs sect. Ha ha ha." Yi Fengru naturally understood the consequences of these people dying in the Three Springs sect. This was the reason why he didn't choose the highly toxic powder immediately, causing everyone present to lose their lives. He wanted to make use of these people. Threatening Yi Qing Luo. He wanted to see Yi Qing Luo kneeling in front of him begging for mercy. He wanted to see Yi Qing Luo in a disheveled state, suffering from humiliation. Yi Qing Luo glanced at him coldly as she smiled, her expression calm. Really? Are you trying to compete with me in speed? So, do you think it's faster for me to kill you or for you to poison these people? Yi Fengru's face paled. He stared vigilantly at Yi Qing Luo. However, a red shadow flashed before his eyes. Before he could even react, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. A burst of profound energy slapped onto his chest. He moved his fingers and quickly tried to open the other bottle. But before he could do anything, Yi Qing Luo's fingers had already grabbed onto his wrist. With several cracking sounds, Yi Fengru let out a pained scream. His entire face was contorted in pain. You deserve to die, do you know that? Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly. Under that charming smile, bit by bit, she broke Yi Fengru's hand. The bottle in his hand fell into Yi Qing Luo's hand. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.